Hey there, welcome to The Dutch Skipper. I'm Michael, and this year, in August, I bought a boat. I don't have a ton of experience being on boats, aside from being at the Dutch Lifeguard Society, but owning a boat, that's different. Over the past 3 months, I've done quite a bit of maintenance, replaced some older parts, I've installed some new fuel filters, I've even installed a strainer filter, which for a non-techie, non-mechanic person like myself was quite the win. Now it's time to tackle one of the biggest eyesores that I've had, the dashboard. To be fair, my dashboard works. I mean, I have a working helm, I have a working throttle, I have a set of mostly working gauges. But behind that dashboard is a tangle of wires because over the past probably 50 years, many of the various owners have added all sorts of wiring, taken equipment away, added new equipment. It's a mess. What can I do about this dashboard? Let's have a look. Hey, welcome back aboard the boat. Today is going to be the first part of a 3-parter series, most likely, looking at the dashboard. Because this dashboard is, not very up to date, so to put it. I'm going to put a photo on screen right now about how the dashboard looked when I got it. And this is what it looks like now. Here's the dash. We got our steering wheel, we got our telegraph / throttle. Then we have this panel from Volvo Penta, which is the engine brand. And you might be seeing that this thing is probably as old as the engine, which is fine. It still works. It still does the trick. These buttons rather, are rather old. These are more modern. This is my fuel gauge, which surprisingly says I'm like less than half, which is nonsense because I'm actually just full up. Then over here to the side we have one dial which says how much do we have in the septic tank, and we have one dial that says this is how much you have in the battery. And then over here we have a 12-volt charger that I installed. I'm going to pull these things out. We have 2 USB-C ports and 2 USB-A ports. I'm using one of those to charge my marine radio, rather, if it is in its cradle. Now, what you can also see over here is one big, missing piece. That was a plotter. And I had a plotter on the boat when I got it. The plotter had maps which were from 2009, so 16 years old. That means they were thoroughly out of date. And not only that, but because the boat was originally from Norway and then sailed around in Sweden, she was actually using Swedish maps. So I had just no resolution on this. So I pulled that off and thought I'm not going to use it again. I did look into updating the maps, but the consideration there was the maps are about 250 a pop. So not terrible, but I felt the tech was just outdated, so I wanted something else. What we also had over here, which is kind of where I put the new bracket for the marine radio, is the old marine radio. I still have the wiring for that going here. It goes through the dash and then it comes up and it goes all the way up to the roof, where I have, unfortunately, a cracked antenna. That marine radio was also from 2009-ish. There was also, down here, an AIS receiver. Again, from 2009. So it seems that electronics-wise the boat hadn't been adjusted since 2009, whereas I know that the previous owner was in possession of the boat for about 5 years. So he might not have felt any need to update. He might have navigated different, I'm not sure. Anyway, there were some other dials here. Over here we had the dial that says, hey, this is how long you've run the engine for. That was disconnected. The whole thing was just disconnected. And then the other part of that was, this is your speed, so just a log meter. Under the boat I have this little propeller thingy, and that tells me how fast we're going. supposedly. Except, when I got the boat on the truck, I saw that it was in piss poor condition. That log meter was never going to work, nor did it ever when I was sailing around with the boat. So I decided I'm going to start cleaning things up. I took that out. Over here is also another big gap. Right here, this is where there used to be a connection for a marine audio system. And there were even speakers which came with the boat. The whole marine system, I don't know, might have been something that somebody wanted to install, but never actually did. And nothing was connected. Just absolutely nothing. The speakers were in one of the couches, just in their container, in their box. So I thought, well, okay, fine. If I'm gonna listen to music, I'll probably just use a small Bluetooth speaker, because I can move that around. If the kids want to listen to something, they can do so in the back with the Bluetooth speaker. You know, I don't need a marine radio, nor would I really know where to put one. Let alone my skill level actually meeting that part. So what I want to do is modernize this dash. Make sure it gets a nice new finish. I'm a bit of two minds on this. I can go the easy way. I can say, hey, I'm going to just put a new surface on top of this. I'm going to remove all these old, well, button switches. These ones might stay, but I would probably also have one over here instead. I'm gonna tighten this up and then actually put one of those connectors on. But I'll probably do that up here. The reason being, I want to get this cabin back, and when I got the boat, it was just one big jungle of wires. I was able to thin it some because the NEMA connectors went out. I mean, there's still an NEMA 2000 backbone here, and there is one connection to it, which I think is the transducer, so the depth sounder. Unfortunately, without a display, I can't actually use that. Now, I am looking to get an Orca core, and an Orca core is a sort of navigation, compass, GPS, everything. It plugs into NMEA, and you can then use that to display all the information about your boat, like how fast you're going, what your course is, stuff like that, plus the depth sounder. So that's why I still have that. Now, I want to get this part back, which is a bit of a mess, as you can tell. There's all sorts of wires going up there. These are the buttons, by the way. This is the Volvo Penta display up here. Here we have some of these. Yeah, that's the fuel gauge. Fuel gauge, by the way, has 4 connectors. 5, in fact. We got... what do we got? We got a blue one, we got a red one. Red is battery positive, blue is battery negative. I'm not sure why that's not just black and red. We have black, which is the sensor, which obviously isn't working that well. Then we have an orange one, which says red light, and then we have a yellow one, which says yellow light. So this one is connected to, I suppose... I'm not even sure where the lights are supposed to be on this one. Anyway, they don't really work because I've had low fuel, but I've never actually seen that light come on. Also, that's probably not helpful. Now, something that struck me as really, really weird. These 3, right? So these are all the yellow wires. I'm colorblind, but I'm fairly positive, no pun intended, that this is yellow. These all go to this button. What is that? The horn. Why? Because it's not a positive, right? It's not a positive. So it's a sensor line essentially that says, hey, if this thing then turn the yellow light on, I suppose. But why would that be connected to the horn? I don't understand that. I don't understand why this would be connected to that. Because it's not backlit. That's panel lights. And by the way, if I turn the panel lights off, my display also dies. So this thing also provides juice to that, which... there's something to be said for that. On the other hand, I think if I have my main... Well, if I have a battery running, be it the starter battery or the liveaboard battery... Well, not liveaboard, but, you know, the house battery. I would want to have those sensors online. I would want to be able to see, okay, I got this much fuel, I got this much juice, and I got that much in my septic tank. So why those things are connected the way they are, I don't understand. So, option 1 is to take the easy way and just go, I'm going to go with a new surface, and ideally I want to have a smaller set of buttons, because some of these can be moved, such as the pantry pump. That doesn't need to be here, that could just be there. The same can be said for the lights. That turns on the lights here. That's nice, but that doesn't strictly need to be here. Because I would like this section of the dash just to be navigation, so just focused on sailing, but have a couple of the buttons like that one and like the pantry pump be here, so that my kids can also access them and turn on the light. That's option 1. Option 2 is overhaul the electrical system. That will be a slightly bigger system, a slightly bigger thing to do. And here's why. Behold, cyberpunk. These things I think are fine. These are just fuse boxes, right? There's nothing too special about that. This is basically, from my limited understanding, saying, hey, something can go through if this fuse is good, otherwise kill it. However, there are some things, these connectors here, you don't have that on a boat, or at least you're not really supposed to have that on a boat, from my understanding. And then, the flashlight over. There's this whole Frankensteinish combination of wires. I'm no electrician, but that looks a bit iffy to me. That looks a bit iffy to me. So, if I want to overhaul that, I can. Well, with my limited understanding of it, I can. It's just going to be a lot of work. Because there is a list. There is a list of all of these little clippy things. For example, 16 here. If the camera actually wants to focus on it. It does not. Well, they're all labeled. They're all labeled. But the interesting thing is, nobody knows what they do. To some extent. Because there is a list. And I think about 5 of them are actually labeled. So, yeah, I've been slowly figuring out what these things are. So if you see one of these connectors, one of these markers, that's me. Pantry pump, that's me. This is going to be a lot more work if I want to overhaul all of that. Also, where do I put it? Because my initial plan was, I'm going to put that here. What I'm going to do, well, what I'm considering doing, is just taking the whole thing out. So, taking a small saw and just taking all of this out. Of course, having removed all of that. Put a new thing back, but have a sort of couple of hinges here. So I could just fold it open and work on it when something needs work. Here's the problem. This is not deep. Whoops. That's how deep that is. So there's almost no room. Unless you want to go for a whole new, different type of dashboard. But if you want to do that, well, that exceeds my skills. Because then you'd also have to start taking the helm apart. You might need to wholly disconnect this thing, which I'm a bit iffy on. I might need to have a mechanic over for that. And it's just going to be a massive project if I want to do that. I think the angle at which these things presently are fine, because I can easily see my RPMs, I can see my temperature. It might not be as easy with the reflection from the light for the camera, but I can see it when I'm sailing. What I also would like to have and I've been using my tablet for that, is a tablet navigation. This is what I use the Orca app on. And I would just put that up, well, like that, essentially. I would put that up under an angle like this, ideally. So that, I'm just going to turn that off, that's confusing. So that I still have vision, I still got all my instruments there, and I can navigate. So I got a map. At the moment I don't. So I would just have like a tablet holder here, or something that holds up the tablet under an angle like that. Plug it into one of the USB ports, which I also would like to have over there, and then make sure that everything gets juice as and when it needs it. For example, a tablet would need it. So that's the plan. What I want to do first of all is just plan and map everything. And I don't strictly mean all the wiring, I mean I'm going to just simply make a mock-up of the whole thing. So I've gotten a couple of lovely pink cardboard boxes from my wife. Thank you. And I'm pretty much just going to make a mock-up of this. So that I know, okay, I got this much space. And I'm kind of not counting this one, really. Because I might still want to have a new marine radio there, like a fixed one, as opposed to the hand-carried one that I currently have. So I'm going to just cut this out to the size of the dash. Then I'm going to make some models, some mock-ups of this thing. Not these buttons. I do want to take a sort of scale of this thing. I want to have a scale of this thing, this one and that one. And then I can start playing around with where I want everything to go. So that's what I'm going to do. Ta-da! Dashboard. Well, the mock-up at least. I'm going to take this thing home, and this is going to allow me to just test things out at home, like configurations, like how would I want things to be positioned. Then I could transfer that over here. Now, that still hasn't answered the question of, do I need to do the electronics? I have been watching a lot of videos, figuring out how all this stuff works. On the one hand, I'm going, I can just figure this out, and I can build this, and it's probably not that difficult. And if you have done this, and you're watching this video, you might go, well, it's easy. Yes, once you've done things, they're typically easier. I have not done this. Then again, something I've learned from the boat is that it's definitely easier once you just dig in. It's, especially with the engine work that I've done, it was pretty intimidating at first, like, oh, I'm gonna have to tear apart parts of the engine. And now I'm going, oh yeah, it's just the heat exchanger, you know, a couple of bolts, one bolt there, one hose there, and you're done. I've only just about reached the 3-month anniversary that I've had this boat, and I've learned so much. So if I can figure that out, I can probably figure this out too. The question is, how do I make it easy to access? And I haven't quite worked that out yet. Because over here, you got this little hatch, which supposedly, well, no, not necessarily supposedly, but it fits perfectly. I'm not even sure if it's custom or not, because this is just really, really thin, like just plastic or probably fiberglass. You can see it here; it's really thin. I can't really work with this. I can't really make this easy to access one way or another. So it's always going to be this tangle, unless, for example, I make this whole thing easier to open. So I would have to make something like this, except over the whole length. And that way I would have better access to it. And potentially also still have some room to, for example, hide this NEMA stuff and you know, clear up this shit. Because I want this to look a little better, less messy, preferably. But that, it's both really appealing to do, because I don't like this disorganized shit. So it's really appealing to do in that sense, but it's also quite intimidating because I've never done it. And it involves learning multiple skills pretty much at once, because I would have to saw this stuff out. So like that, make it bigger, make it easier to access. But in order to do that, I first have to make sure I'm not actually sawing into anything, so I'd have to start taking a whole lot of stuff out. I'd have to start removing parts. I have considered removing the dashboard, so I can pull it forward somewhat, but not much. And that's the problem. Because I think it's the helm that actually holds things together. That's holding the whole thing back. You can see there's a lot of wires running behind that here. So all of those are bypassing the helm, and I think part of them are here, behind that part. And then they're all joining here into this, well, mess. So on the one hand I'm going, yeah, let's go do it. On the other hand I'm going, I can probably better leave well enough alone. And let somebody else do this, who's more experienced in this. Or at least help me with it. Because I'm not sure if I can do this alone. Now there's also more. Over here we still have more of this shit. So you can see there's a bunch more of these connectors. These are coming from the back of the boat. There's a whole wire harness running here. And then that kind of separates into these, and then it connects to something else. So I'm thinking it probably connects to various different buttons to do various different tasks. I know that one of these, yeah, here's one. One of these is navigation light. This comes out here. I'm not sure again why this is then the way it is. Doesn't strike me as very safe. But where do I start? Where do I start? And that is also partly why I'm making this video, to get advice from you. Because you might have done this before, you might have experience doing this, you might have all sorts of tips on what to do, and especially on what not to do. So, let's assume for a moment that I want to do this. What would be the best way to go about it? How would I best be able to overhaul this dash and the electrical system without, well, I don't know, electrocuting myself or using wires which aren't the right gauge and thus causing heating and or fires? That's a concern. That's a concern. So please leave a comment down below. How do I do this? I've already asked on a forum and they said, well, if you don't know what you're doing, it's best not to not to mess with it. Fair enough, that is one perspective, but assume that I want to do this. A few days later, I simply couldn't leave well enough alone. I noticed the whole electrics thing kept getting in my head, and it's all the more exacerbated by one of my batteries, not the starter battery, but the house battery, not being very reliable. So I've decided I'm going to replace that. I started looking into different batteries, and well, you got the old lead-acid batteries. They work. You can't discharge them very well. You got various different degrees of them. So I thought, well, do I have to make the jump to lithium iron phosphate, the LiPe4, or LiPo4, whatever, those things. And I thought, yeah, let's go do it. I happened to find some additional cash, well, to some extent. An old crypto portfolio I kind of forgot about. So I emptied that out and thought this is going to be useful. Especially as at this point, Lighttime, which is a producer of those new batteries, had a bit of a black sale event. So I thought, okay, am I going to do that now? Because it would mean messing up the whole system. It would mean that my alternator on my engine cannot charge the LiPo battery. That would be a problem, so I would have to invent something else for that. Well, not invent, but at least install. So I started looking into that, and started researching that, and started looking into, okay, so then what else do I need? And, well, scope creep happened. Lots of scope creep. So I ordered a new battery. I ordered a 140 amp hour LiPo or LiP, yeah, LiPo FE, I think. Lithium phosphate iron battery, LiPo 4. And that's going to be the house battery. Now, let me show you what my plan is for the new electrical system. And then potentially you can help me with that. Because if you know more about this stuff, which is likely at this point, then I can very much use your help. So let's head over to the schematic. Behold, this is my schematic. No, really, this is the one that I have drawn up this morning. It's to make it easy for me to see, because I haven't quite learned all the symbols that you might use in technical school. So, top left-hand side, we got the main engine. I just plunked down the engine and said, okay, we have an alternator and we have a starter motor, and they both need juice from the starter battery. The starter battery that you see on the bottom left-hand side is the one that I presently have. It's an Optima yellow top. That Optima yellow top is going to receive power from the alternator, and it's going to provide power to the starter motor, but only when I tell it can do so. So only when I turn that main key. Then, if I have a DC-DC converter, that's going to allow the thing to start powering the house battery, but only when the alternator is running. So only when the alternator is running and generating enough volts, that excess power, so to speak, is going to allow it to be flowed into the house battery. Supposedly, that should be enough. I don't know exactly what the capacities are for my present alternator, but that's my understanding of it. Now, that DC-DC converter is going to allow power into the house battery, but it's a one-way street. You cannot power the starter battery from the house battery. Supposedly, you can't even start with one of those LiPo4 batteries, so that really shouldn't be a problem. But the most important thing is I don't want the starter battery to start demanding power from the house battery. Anyway, from the house battery, it flows in this schematic towards another starter, or another main switch, a key, and from there into a fuse box. Then we're going to flow into the buttons, and when I press a button, for example, I can turn on that navigation light that I pictured there, or the fridge, or whatever other users I want to add, which there are probably quite a few, especially having seen all the wires that I currently have on my boat. Now, I have ordered the battery, so there's kind of no way back. At the moment, the system has 2 lead-acid batteries, but the problem lies in the alternator, or in the new battery. Supposedly, you cannot charge a LiPo4 with the alternator that I have right now. It could kill the alternator, and that's not what I want to do. So that's why that DC-DC converter is there. There are a lot of things I have picked up over the last couple of days, over the last week or so, because I have been pretty much non-stop reading, absorbing YouTube videos, figuring out how other people did this, asking questions on Facebook groups dedicated to marine engineering. I'm learning this stuff quickly, and yet it's still a bit daunting. It's a bit scary because I am going to be working with electronics. I'm going to be doing basically an entire overhaul of the electrical system on the boat, and that's going to be a lot of work. I did order the battery though, so there's not really a way back. Now, I will have to order some other parts, such as new switch panels, such as new fuse panels, such as the DC-DC converter, as well as those keys that allow me to shut down the whole system. What I have right now, maybe I can use some parts of it, but not much, I think. The wiring should still be feasible. The starter battery is going to remain the same, but the system that I have right now is 2 lead-acid batteries, and those 2 are connected using one of those 1, 2, so both or 2 or off. Okay, let me try that again. I have a couple of options on that button. It says either you use 1, which is starter battery, 2, which is your house battery, 1 and 2 together, or you put everything off. So in this case, if you're moving the boat, if you're starting the boat, you hit the starter battery, you put it to 1. If you're stationary, you put it to 2. And if you want to charge both, you set it to both. And ideally, the alternator would put power into both of the batteries. I have my doubts about the alternator. Maybe I didn't put the belt on well enough, tight enough. I mean, the alternator spins, but I don't really get the idea it's generating enough juice. So maybe that thing too will have to get replaced. It is a bit of a daunting project. I have not done anything like this before. I'm picking up knowledge quick, but there are probably things that I so far have missed. So if you have any insights, please let me know down below in the comments. I am very eager to learn, and I'm eager to get this right. Because the wiring that I have on my boat has been a patchwork of all the various owners together, and I want to do it better. I want to make sure that this boat gets, well, let's say future-proofed. Because the one thing that I didn't actually show you that I would like to add eventually is a solar panel. And then the solar panel is going to charge the house battery. It's not going to charge the starter battery because the starter battery ideally just gets started or gets charged by the alternator and then doesn't need any further attention. So it's just going to power the house battery and extend my off-grid capabilities. Plenty of information for me still to pick up, plenty of things still to learn. And, well, at the moment, I'm absorbing knowledge and I'm sometimes struggling to take a break. Because my brain just goes more and more and more. And that's not necessarily always healthy. Sometimes I'm still in bed reading about different battery types or how to tie the whole circus together. So, let me know what your thoughts are below. I look forward to seeing that. This project is a go. And, well, it's definitely not going to be a 3-parter video, as I had intended. So thank you for watching. I'll see you soon for the next part.